Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Russ. And
I'm Jeanelle Slade. A 60-mile stretch of highway in southeast Montana shut down in both directions today after military projectiles spill out on the road.
Now, this happened when 3 semi-trucks crashed on Highway 212 around 9 o'clock last night near Hammond, causing that closure between Broadus and Elzada.
Carter County Sheriff Neil Kittleman says 2 semi-trucks collided, then a third semi crashed into them and went into a ditch. Kittleman says one of the semis was carrying the military explosives. Kittleman tells Q2 the Air Force was called in to assist with removal.
The Powder River County Sheriff's Office says the military is still working to clear the explosives and is prepared to detonate some if necessary. No other cleanup can be done until the projectiles are removed, and there's no timeline on when that road will reopen.
Well, tonight, the future of downtown Billings, how it looks, feels, and moves forward will be decided.
After months of exploration and debate, we will learn the fate of the One Big Sky District project. Q2's Zoe Zandora standing by with a preview of tonight's vote. Zoe?
Thanks, Russ and Jeanelle. Yeah, a big night for City Council and the City of Billings. City Council will decide the fate of One Big Sky District. City staff does recommend approval. Leaders of One Big Sky call it a vision to create one of America's great cities of tomorrow. They say the project is key not only to Billings' economic future, but to the entire state of Montana. That vision includes 4 core districts in downtown Billings, each with its own anchor. Those districts are entertainment, lifestyle, education, and a health and wellness district. Plans also include ideas to fill the gap in the Billings economy and make the development financially viable. It also dives into the issue of population, expecting that Billings will see a 6% growth in the next 5 years. It looks to grow Billings' major employers in healthcare and business. The plan includes a comprehensive report of revenue sources and how a return of investment will help push Montana's economy forward. If approved, project developers say One Big Sky could garner $1 billion in state reimbursement money within just 10 years of its existence. And I will report back tonight at 10 o'clock with the big results. Russ and Jeanelle.
All right. Thank you, Zoe.
Now you can head to KTVQ.com and search One Big Sky Project to learn more about those proposed plans.
Montana U.S. Senator Steve Daines visited what he calls ground zero of the southern border crisis overnight, and he says he came away more convinced than ever that the border needs to be secured. Daines says he watched hundreds of people coming over the Rio Grande Valley not far from McAllen, Texas. He says Border Patrol agents told him that they're only able to stop about 10% of drugs and people coming across the border in this area, and that building 135 miles of wall there would enable them to reverse that. He also called it utterly ridiculous that Congress has not been able to reach a deal on funding.
But perhaps the biggest takeaway that I had of the entire night was the fact that we are seeing a flood of illegal drugs pouring across our southern border. Past presidents, Democrats and Republicans, have been able to get border security funding approved by Congress, have built walls. This has become a political football.
Well, time is running out to reach a deal. The government could possibly shut down again this Friday if that doesn't happen.
On a mostly party line vote, the Montana Senate today said yes to a bill requiring all abortion providers to offer women an ultrasound of their fetus. The Senate voted 31-19 for the bill, with all 30 Senate Republicans and 1 Democrat, Gene Vukovich of Anaconda, in favor. Senate Bill 100 states abortion providers in Montana must tell women contemplating abortion they can view an ultrasound image of the fetus and listen to the heartbeat if audible. Women must also sign a statement. Now, bill sponsor Senator Keith Regier of Kalispell said it's similar to a consent form patients must sign for any medical procedure. But Democratic Senator Diane Sands of Missoula disagrees. She says it's a form of harassment and an unneeded intrusion into the doctor-patient relationship. After a final Senate vote this week, the bill moves over to the Montana House.
A legislative committee heard emotional testimony today for a bill to create a state family leave policy and insurance fund for Montana workers statewide. But the state's main business lobby came out against the measure. House Bill 208, sponsored by Democratic Representative Mafi Funk of Helena, would set up that fund. Employers and their workers would fund it, and covered workers could take up to 12 weeks of paid leave to care for a new child or relative in need of care. The Bullock administration supported the bill, and Funk said that the fund will make Montana a leader in creating an attractive work environment by helping workers in times of need. The Montana Chamber of Commerce opposed the measure, saying it's not workable and would end up being way too costly for small businesses. More than a dozen people testified for the measure, including Nina Heinzinger, who said paid leave allowed her to take time from work to be with her dying mother this month.
This past week, I was able to spend time with her while she lay dying. She passed away yesterday morning. Paid leave allowed me to focus on my family, and I didn't have to choose between money and my mom.
Well, the House Business and Labor Committee took no immediate action on that bill today.
The PBS program Frontline will nationally expose a former Montana doctor on Tuesday night. Predator on the Reservation. It's a collaboration with the Wall Street Journal. It outlines the crimes of a former pediatrician on the Blackfeet Reservation who was sentenced last month to more than 18 years in prison for sexually abusing young boys. MTN's Tim McGonigal brings us a preview.
Dr. Stanley Patrick Weber arrived in Browning in 1992 to work at the town's hospital run by the Indian Health Services. He made a good first impression, helping expand the hospital's youth outreach programs. But not everyone was sold. Back then, Blackfeet Tribal Chairman Tim Davis was working in the hospital's facilities department. His duties included inspecting government-owned housing, including where Weber lived.
The gentleman had a lot of food items, candy, pop, cookies, and then toys, games, videos, games that boys would play with.
Others at the hospital became suspicious as well. They were concerned about an after-hours clinic Weber started, where he would see children without a parent or another adult present.
This is grooming behavior. So you take kids who are high risk, who are from difficult family circumstances, and who are poor. And you offer them new clothes, and you offer them food, and you offer them, a home where the lights are on all the time. A child will gravitate toward that.
After his time in Browning, Weber was transferred to the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota, where another doctor became concerned about his behavior. When he shared those concerns with Becky Foster and her husband Mark, a former IHS psychologist, anger and frustration set in.
It says to me, as an Indian woman, as a mother, is that your kids don't matter.
As allegations mounted, Dr. Weber was suspended. One of the people who investigated Weber was one of his superiors, Ron Keats, who would leave the agency and later be convicted on possession of child pornography. According to the former CEO of the Pine Ridge IHS Hospital, Weber was later cleared of any misconduct and allowed to return to work. Weber would ultimately be charged with abusing 4 boys on the Pine Ridge Reservation and 2 on the Blackfeet Reservation. In September of 2018, he stood trial in federal court in Great Falls. The first witness was former Blackfeet patient Joe Fourhorns.
The prosecutor, in her opening statement, she puts up a picture of Joe Fourhorns when he was about 10 or 11 years old, right around the time that he would have been abused by Dr. Weber. She wants the jury to remember this little boy.
In Great Falls, Tim McGonigal, MTN News.
Thanks, Tim. Now, Frontline airs Tuesday night at 9 o'clock on your local PBS station and can also be seen online.
A Browning teenager's death is now the subject of an FBI investigation. Brittany Madplume was found dead in a vehicle on the morning of January 12th. She'd left her home the night before but never returned. When she was found, it was discovered she'd been beaten with bruises all over her face, arms, and hands. The FBI cannot comment any further on the investigation as it's still ongoing. She was the mother of 2 young children. And the family of Ashley Loring heavy runner still searching for answers after she went missing 19 months ago. In December, Kimberly Loring testified in front of the United States Senate Committee on Indian Affairs. She says since the hearing, the FBI has received multiple tips about what happened to Ashley. Ashley's family continues with searches at the Blackfeet Reservation for any clues about what might have happened. The FBI says the remains found in December are still being analyzed.
Well, some Montana prison inmates in Deer Lodge say they went without heat during one of our latest cold snaps.
The Montana ACLU is taking on complaints and reports that the cold was so severe that frost gathered on the inside of cell windows. The ACLU tells MTN that prison officials admit they're having a problem with one of the boilers in the facility.
An inmate relative who filed one of the complaints said she spoke with prisoners who said the problem is in a building where many of the inmates sleep.
There's guys that are freezing all night long and just praying for daylight, so that they can get access to some warmth. And I don't care what you did, if you're incarcerated, you've got the right to be treated like a human.
And the Montana State Prison did not return MTN's request today for any comment.
Well, up next on tonight's 5:30 News, the flu continues to strike Montanans, and now more than 2,000 reported cases statewide. Find out more next.
And later in sports, Scott shows us how this Joliet senior has the Jayhawks rolling into this week's district tournament.
And coming up in weather, maybe a brief warm-up for a couple of days, but then we're looking at some more cold air and snow moving into the region. In some cases, a lot of it. We'll talk about it coming up in a few more minutes.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Breen. This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.